Russian President Vladimir Putin will also be attending the SCO summit next week, as well as next week's military parade in Beijing, along with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Observers say the move marks a show of collective defiance amid Western pressure. Dasha Chernyshova has more from Moscow.
The Kremlin describes Russian President Vladimir Putin's upcoming visit to China as completely unprecedented. During a 4-day visit, he will attend the SCO summit, hold large-scale bilateral negotiations with Beijing, and attend a massive military parade marking the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. Mr Putin last visited China in May 2024, his first foreign visit after assuming office for a 5th term. And in May, China's President Xi Jinping attended a Victory Day parade in Moscow's Red Square and held talks with the Russian leadership, signing a raft of agreements and a joint declaration to deepen bilateral ties. During World War II, China and the Soviet Union were allies against the Axis powers, with China fighting Japan and the Soviet Union joining the war against Japan in August 1945. Experts like Dr. Julia Melnikova of the Russian International Affairs Council say Mr. Putin's visit is a sign of stability and solidarity in an unstable world.
Для Си Цзиньпина принципиально важно сверить часы и по украинскому сюжету, и по сюжету мирового порядка как такового, в том числе накануне юбилея ООН, обменяться мнениями о прошедших переговорах с американской стороной. То есть все это, безусловно, очень важно. Но также есть региональный уровень, собственно, саммит ШОС, который состоится также в эти даты, 31 августа, 1 сентября. Я думаю, что китайская сторона специально подбирала даты под то, чтобы все лидеры смогли присутствовать и на саммите, и на параде. А здесь для России важно транслировать, что восточный вектор ее внешней политики — это все еще приоритет, и он останется приоритетом вне зависимости от того, чем закончатся переговоры с Западом. Ну и российско-китайская повестка очень богатая сама по себе, поэтому на двустороннем уровне тоже лидерам будет о чем говорить. Инвестиции, научно-технологическое сотрудничество, торговля, падают показатели импорта и экспорта в первой половине 2025 года, поэтому здесь будет что обсудить.
Moscow and Beijing proclaimed a no-limit strategic partnership in the weeks leading up to the launch of Russia's special military operation in Ukraine in February 2022. Since then, bilateral trade has risen steadily to a record $245 billion last year, with Russia ranking 7th among China's main trading partners. When Russia, sanctioned by the West, diverted its energy flows from Europe to Asia, China eventually became Moscow's largest energy importer. But growth in trade has slowed, with Russian officials admitting that sanctions and market saturation are beginning to have an impact. While in China, Putin is also expected to hold talks with other international leaders, including Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. That meeting is likely to focus on energy trade, as the US imposed tariffs to end purchases of Russian oil. So despite some warming now seen in the Russian-US ties, Putin's visit to China is to further cement Moscow's pivot to Asia. Dasha Chernyshova, CNA, Moscow.
For more on those leader-level talks between Russia, China and India at this SCO summit, we're joined by Ishan Garg live from New Delhi. Ishan, we just heard from Dasha Chernyshova there. So US tariff pressure, the explicit reason being India's trade in oil with Russia. That might be one topic that Mr. Modi might hope to address when he meets Mr. Xi Jinping and Mr. Putin at this summit.
Well, that's certainly likely to be one of the topics. And we also understand that President Vladimir Putin is expected to come to India. So that gives a lot of other items space on the agenda between Prime Minister Modi and President Vladimir Putin. We also know that India's foreign minister, India's national security advisor have made several trips to Moscow in the past few months. And they have both reiterated that despite US pressures, trade between New Delhi and Moscow is only going to get stronger. At the same time, Prime Minister Modi will be meeting President Xi Jinping, where the ties between India and China will not quite be strengthened in the same way that India-Russia ties will be, but it will be a new start in some sense for the two countries, which have seen their ties hit rock bottom 5 years ago in 2020 when their armies clashed over a border dispute. And from President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Modi's meeting, we are expecting some tangible outcomes, such as potentially announcement of direct flight resumption between Delhi and Beijing, and also potentially India relaxing some scrutiny of Chinese investments in India. Some experts here are also saying that India is going to walk a diplomatic tightrope here because it would still want to maintain close ties with its Western partners, including the United States, the United Kingdom, and the European Union, but would also want to forge closer ties with Moscow and Beijing to cushion some of the blow from U.S. tariffs.
Shan, of course, India is doing that. The Prime Minister, in fact, in Japan right now. So you say maintaining ties with a very close U.S. ally. In the last few minutes, we've had news on the wires, Japan pledging $68 billion of investment in India, talking up the massive market so full of potential. Mr. Modi in Japan, what have they discussed?
Well, a number of items were discussed, and India and Japan have essentially decided to deepen their cooperation across the board. We are going to be seeing $68 billion worth of investment from Japan and India over the next 10 years, as you said. There's also going to be deepening of defense and technology cooperation. There will also be people-to-people ties that will be strengthened. India will send close to 50,000 Indian workers to Japan. Analysts here say that Japan has, of course, the technology, it has the money to invest in India, and India has the human capital and, of course, a vast market that Japanese companies can access. This was something Prime Minister Narendra Modi also told Japanese businesses. He said that the success of Japanese companies like Suzuki and Daikin, that their dream run could be other Japanese companies' dream run as well. And on top of that, we're also seeing that India is increasingly now looking to rely on Japan for some critical elements as well. Prime Minister Modi said that India and Japan will increase their cooperation in the fields of rare earths, semiconductors. And this is one area where experts here would say that India would not want to rely on China because there is a trust deficit between Delhi and Beijing, and would rather find a more suitable partner in Tokyo.
Oh, thanks. Ishan Garg, they're reporting live for us from New Delhi.